So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at a very common task that we need to do when we're creating templates for use with our vinyl cutter for our rhinestone transfers. Now, if you look at this design is a fairly complex design in that the number of colors and also we have a mixed stone size as well. So you can see we have the three colors for the flame, the two colors for the ball, and the ball we're using a combination of SS6 and SS10 stones. So depending on how we want to create our templates, we have lots of options here in EasyStone to make that separation process very simple. So if we expand out here and just kind of take a look, the first thing you'll see is you'll see one complete file. Alright, so depending on your particular software that you use for actually cutting your templates, like my software allows me to simply specify what color I want to cut. Alright, and this weed box that you see around the design, that is something that we can add automatically as well. So as we go through here, you can see this would be the first template. So this template has the weed box and has all the yellow portion of the flame. And then here we have the kind of orange color of the flame, and then we have a template for the red part of the flame. So you see right there is three separate templates. Now down here we have all the SS6 stones for this particular soccer ball, and then we have a separate template for SS10 stones. Now for this particular example, I probably wouldn't cut two separate templates for the same color, but sometimes on larger designs I personally think it's a little bit easier when we're dealing with lots of stones to have two separate templates, even though it's for the same color. And in theory we could fill in all the larger size stones first and then follow that up by the smaller stones. When we're dealing with lots of stones, to me, I find it's just easier to make two separate templates. But what's nice is we give you the option in EasyStone to be able to output these separations automatically for you however you want to do it. Whether or not you want one template for both size stones in this particular example, or you want to split it out into two separate templates. And then of course, lastly, we have the SS10 in the crystal, and then the SS6 in the crystal. So you get all of these separations in your CorelDRAW file. But more importantly than that, because we do all these separations automatically, EasyStone will actually export the file itself. So let me show you how this works and what your options are so you have a better understanding of what we're talking about here. So I'm going to delete all those separations and go right back to just my soccer ball design. So right now we don't have a weed box specified, but that's okay. We're just going to select our finished design, and we're going to come over here to our miscellaneous tab and choose the export option here. Now once we get to our vector export options, we can define a weed margin, and for this example I'm just going to use a weed margin of 1. And then down here we can specify registration marks. Some people might want to use registration marks, some people might not want to. So we can define the size of our registration mark, which in this case I'm using 1/2-inch circles, and then we can specify the registration offset. Now I'm going to explain what that is once we actually create the separation so you can get a better idea. Now the next thing that we specify is exactly what we want. And sometimes these options here might be a little bit confusing at first, but if you bear with me through the process, you'll get a better understanding. So the first thing that we're asking the software to do is to give me just export an EPS file with a weed box. So for that particular process, I would choose the complete checkbox and the combo checkbox here. And then when I go ahead and I can give it a file path of where to save it. So in this case it defaults to my desktop. So when I choose export, and before I do that, I'm actually going to show you my desktop. So let's look at that. Let's show you my desktop. So there's my desktop, and you can see I just have my soccer file. I don't have any other files on my desktop whatsoever. So we're going to go back in here and choose export. And it just blinks for a second, and then it tells you that my export's complete. Now what you'll see here is it created that separation for me, which in this case really wasn't a separation at all. But it does give me the end result. If for any reason I wanted to export this again, I already have this already set up with a weed box and these registration marks. Now, because all of the separations will have the same size weed box, when we layer our color flock template, or if you're using sticky flock or whatever the case might be, when you're layering your templates, that square is going to be the exact same for every single color. And so you can lay it right on top. Now some people do like to also add registration marks, so not only are you going to line up the edges of your box one right directly on top of another, but you'll also be able to confirm that registration because these holes will be punched through every single template as we're layering it on top and layering it on top. And this is a fairly complicated design because we have lots of pieces to this design. So that's the first option. So let's go ahead and delete that. Now on the desktop, and that's what's important to note, is now we have a soccer EPS file that I can bring in here, and of course when I bring it in, there's our EPS file, and so that is the file that we would expect to have. Okay, so we'll go ahead and delete that. Now I can bring this right into my cutting software. I use K&K Studio with my Eagle, a 24-inch Eagle vinyl cutter that I purchased from digitalcuttersplus.com, Brenda down there, which is a K&K cutter, and the software, the K&K Studio software, allows me to specify what color or colors I want to cut at one time. So I don't need to separate my files because my cutting software kind of has that functionality built in. Now, the other option would be if you are using, for example, Make the Cut. Okay, when you import a design and Make the Cut, we have to do things a little bit differerly. Or if you're using WinPC Sign, there again we have to do things a little bit differently. So go back to our export options here, and we have some other options. So in this case, I'm gonna uncheck the complete, and I'm just gonna check the color separations. And right now it's gonna do color separations because I chose the color checkbox, and it's going to do it in a combo file. So okay, so it's not going to export individual files. So let me show you what that actually the end result is. So let's choose export, and it's saying that there's already a file with the same name on the desktop, which because we already generated the soccer ball once. So yes, let's go ahead and replace it. And now our export's complete. Now let's take a look at the separations. So now we have our first one, which is the complete one, and then we have one template. You can see one template for yellow, for orange, for red, for black diamond in this case, and for crystal. And the black diamond has actually two size stones, as does the crystal template. Okay, so we just told it just separate by color. So this is the result that we get here inside our CorelDRAW file. Now, what did it actually create for us in terms of a vector file? Well, here on our desktop we have that soccer vector file. Let's drag it back into CorelDRAW here, move it over here, and we'll go ahead and import that. And this is what you get. Okay, so you get everything but the complete one. So when I bring this into WinPC Sign or Make the Cut, I can put each one of these boxed areas on a separate layer in those programs, and then I can go ahead and cut accordingly. Okay, so that is just something special. So in other words, if I were to take, you can see this. Let me ungroup this just so you get a better visual of this. If I were to take each one of these and stack them right on top of one another, it doesn't matter like in what order or anything, but you can see if I'm building up this transfer, when I stack all these right on top of one another, because the weed box is the same, you can see I get my completed rhinestone transfer. Okay, so that if you're using a program that doesn't allow you to import a colored EPS file and specify what color to cut, such as Make the Cut or WinPC Sign, that is the option that you're going to want to use. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close that out. Now, Uh, just to keep going here, let's go ahead and bring this back over. We'll choose the Export EPS option. And in this time, we're going to add the color checkbox as well. So we're going to do color, and we're going to separate by size into a combo file. So we'll go ahead and choose the export option. We'll go ahead and again, it detects that there's already a file existing, so it asks us if we want to override it. And now you can see basically we get the same result. We get the completed version, and then we get all these different color separations. And then, of course, the difference being here, we get the color separations. So we have a black diamond SS6 and a black diamond SS10. We have a SS10 crystal, and then we also have an SS6 crystal. So we have those two extra templates for the different stone sizes. All right, and the reason that works that way is because when we're designing our design, if you look here in the object manager here, you can see it says black diamond SS10 and black diamond SS6. So that object, that's how it's determining the size of that hole. So that's part of the design process when you're doing designs here with EasyStone. Alright, now let's look at one more option. And that is to go back to the export options here. That is to say, I want to create individual files. And we're going to go ahead and just create individuals. Let's go ahead and do by size and color. That's fine. So we're going to do our separations, but instead of one file, it's actually going to generate one file, one EPS file for every color and every size stone in the design. So, and it's going to do it right here on our desktop. So let me show you what that does. So we'll go ahead and choose export again. And you'll see it's busy getting to work. Those little flashes, it's exporting every single file. So there we go. So our export is now complete. Now we still get the color separations and size separations right here inside our CorelDRAW document by default. And then if we go to the desktop, then you can see that if I refresh my desktop, you can see all these extra files here. So here is the black diamond and SS6. So let me just go ahead and drag that in. And you can see what that template looks like. So there's our SS6 template. And then here is our orange in SS10. And you can see it says right here, soccer, light cyan in 10, crystal in 10, and crystal in 6. You see where it says 6 right there. So we could tell by just looking at the names of the file. This is our citrine color in SS10, and of course our black diamond here in SS10 as well. Okay, so you can see when we export individual files here, which in this case we exported EPS files. When you see we export those individual files there, it'll automatically add the color and stone size information to the file name that we're working with. Now we can export via EPS, SVG, CMX, CDR, PLT. There's a variety of export options in terms of the file type to export to get a vector file, but the way it does the separations is the same. So in other words, if we chose the export via SVG, if we're using Silhouette Studio for our Silhouette Cameo cutters, we can import our SVG file, either individual files, or we can import one SVG file that would contain all the separations. It just depends on how you're used to working. So anyhow, those are the color separations, size separations, and the export options here inside EasyStone. Thanks for watching.